franchise secrets, Erik Van Horn.
Hey, in this episode of Franchise Secrets, I have Clement Troutman, top franchisee over at Tropical Smoothie Cafe, and just an amazing story. Family of four, they're in business together. He's got one of the top performing Tropical Smoothie Cafes. He actually was Rookie of the Year, took it from like $1 million, like where the record was $1 million a year. He 2X'd that its first year, and really just set the pace for the brand and future owners. We got into the leadership. We got into, mistakes that he's made, the importance of getting rid of the wrong people. It was just such a fun interview. We started out by talking about his military experience, living abroad, how that's impacted kind of his view of the world and business and all kinds of fun stuff. But man, I really enjoyed this conversation. And I think you will too. Enjoy this episode with Clement. All right, so I'm here with Clement Troutman, and we just had 15 minutes of just a fun, interesting conversation before we hit record. We might get into a little bit of that, but you were recommended by someone that is a multi-unit franchisee with Tropical Smoothie. And he's like, you need to have Clement on your podcast because he's like the most successful single unit owner. I know that you're going on to do other things within the brand and with the other brands, I believe. But I was just really excited to have you on. And then I found out you're former military and we were talking about some of that stuff. So first of all, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you, Erik. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And why don't we start there? Because I'm always fascinated with people that had a military background and then they go on to do other really cool things in business, and you've been around the world. So why don't we just start with your background, how you got into the military and then how you got into franchising?
Okay. Yeah, Erik. So we took a little bit of the scenic route to get where we are today. Honestly, I started out wanting to, make it in the NFL, and playing high school football and everything. Think I would go into the NFL, and got injured in college, and that didn't pan out. But what happened was, a good friend of mine ended up joining the Navy, and I decided I was going to go with them. And so it was interesting because it was during a time frame when, honestly, this is in the the 70s, the late 70s, right? That the military wasn't really on my radar, but I knew I wanted to be successful and didn't want to be a 5-6 year red shirt in college, So what ended up happening was I went down and said, hey, I'm going with you. We signed up on the buddy program, and I've joined the Navy and went to boot camp in Orlando, Florida, and learned some things there, but really wasn't that big of a transition because playing football, we had the same type of leadership on the football field down in the Southeast. And so adapted to that and ended up making it a career. Traveling the world and seeing different countries was really my motivator, to be honest with you, starting out, but got to learn a lot about our country and about the great freedoms we have here in the process, if you will. And quite frankly, the sacrifices that go with that. So I've lived in Spain for 3 years, lived in Japan for 4, toured in Guam for 2 years, a couple of isolated duty assignments as well. So spent about 10 to 12 years abroad, if you will, out of my time, total of 24 years. My background, specialized in the field of cryptology of Naval Security Group, specialized operative portion of the Navy dedicated to intelligence, things of that nature, and working with intelligence agencies. So that's how we got started.
All right. So I've lived overseas. I've been to a lot of different countries. Most people grew up in a small town in South Dakota don't get to experience the travel that I've done, both for fun and just to like a lot of NGO type stuff. So what was like the best thing about your experience as an American going overseas into different parts of the world, some really cool places, some that are more like challenging to live in, there's a different perspective that people have of Americans. How did your perspective of America change, or how did that impact kind of your worldview?
Wow, very good question. The one thing about being abroad and living in a foreign country is that you get to look back at America and see how, first of all, how the world sees America, and that I remember meeting someone, I think from Pakistan or one of those countries, and he said, America is considered the heartbeat of the world to other countries, and that we have to make it, so we're the example. Quite frankly, when you're abroad, we're pretty much ambassadors of the first thing that they have real contact with American culture, right? And who we are, and they're just fascinated and they watch everything we do, and so that was enlightening, the opportunity to see the perspective of America from abroad also, it showed me all the freedoms that we have naturally, if you will, here in this country that are amazing to other countries, the freedom to start a business and coming from, if you're, in other words, growing up with no financial support or being able to become a business owner or to start organizations and without barriers to entry, those kinds of things that are American culture that, we probably take for granted on the daily, right? But it's just normal for us that other countries are just fascinated with. They would ask me about, tell me about Washington, D.C. and the monument, and have you seen the Lincoln Memorial? And that really challenged me because I hadn't been there yet, at that time. Yeah, so they knew more about, they studied American culture more so than, here at home, so that was enlightening, that we really, really, and as I alluded to, when it comes to our freedoms, the dream for, that I've seen and in different countries, right? Not just one, whether it be Italy, whether it be Australia, is that coming to America, it validates the opportunity for freedom, and to live life on your own terms, for so many, right? And that likewise, I think, becomes somewhat of a challenge for us here because everybody wants to come here, but we can't accommodate everyone, so, so it's going to be a long-term challenge for us with the borders and stuff like that. And, because unless we stop being who we are, people are willing to pay the price to get here, whether legally or illegally, so those are one of the challenges I think we're going to have there for a long time to come, but those are something that I realized by seeing it from that perspective.
One of the things that I've been working on is exposing my kids. I got 3 daughters, almost 9, 10, and 13. Tried to expose them to outside of America culture and different things. We've only been to Mexico and Costa Rica, so that's not a big deal yet. But pretty soon is Europe for us, and then Africa. So that's on the agenda. So you being able to travel and be exposed to other countries, eventually being an entrepreneur now. How do you help your kids understand, how have you helped them understand what you know and what's important for you to pass on to them?
Wow, what a wonderful question. Yeah, so it just so happens, right prior to the pandemic, my son and my daughter, we were in Germany. And actually my son, he's at Stanford University in the graduate program. He was invited to a panel in Germany. So it was a great opportunity for us to go abroad and turn into a mini vacation. And so while we were in Germany, we made it, got on the trains, 200 miles an hour, right? That kind of thing. Went up to Paris, spent a few days there and, just make a trip, taking advantage of that opportunity, right? To see the world. My daughter, actually, she was born in Japan. So yeah, she was born in Japan. So we keep like Jack and I, we keep a perspective of that the world is small, and to be experienced, if you will, and immersion is pretty much our philosophy about learning a different culture, right? If you can go there and eat the food and kiss the trains and right and see their drinking water systems and to really, matter of fact, we're looking at them going to Italy. I think Jackie said in June of next year we're planning to go to Italy. But we were able to go to in Paris, go to the Louvre and see the artwork and actually see the Virgin Mary and all these things here, right? Real time. And so it gives us a better understanding of people, right? One thing we found, Erik, is that everybody wears an invisible sign. The sign simply reads, "Please remind me that I matter." And so even if we're speaking other languages, we still communicate, right? And now we have apps to help us with that. But still, there's a universe we're communicating that lets people know that I'm making the effort, right? I respect your culture. And 9 times out of 10, they embrace, as you've probably seen as well, they embrace the fact that you appreciate their culture enough to try to understand it, in their way of life, right? And so that's the kind of thought process we have for a family.
That is fantastic. And that's what I've discovered as I've been, in a number of different countries and with the kids. Like before we go, we try to learn about the country and then we try new things there and understand it and to try. And they appreciate you trying the language and trying to learn about their culture and then they're interested in us as well. So that's great. Anytime I get somebody unique on like this and we had just a different background, I asking these questions for my own learnings. I know you've been married for many years, and when I saw that, I'm like, there's different mentors that you can have in life. But when someone's been married for a long time and they've been successful in business, and like you with your experience abroad and in the military, I just think what can I learn from this man? So thank you for sharing that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but I'm actually learning from you as well.
Well, let's continue on. So tell us about Tropical Smoothie. Give us a sense of, you've had it for 5 or 6 years, I think, maybe longer. And then give us a sense. I would think you're in number one, or you've been number one for it, for years. So give us a sense, brag on yourself a little bit so the audience knows what you've accomplished in that. And then we'll go into how you've been able to accomplish what you have.
Okay, so Tropical Smoothie Cafe was born out of an idea of my daughter Jocelyn. I was still working as a defense contractor, and in information technology, IT field, and cybersecurity, supporting the white war fighters in that effort. And but my daughter was in college, and she was looking at business models, if you will, in the School of Business at Howard University. And she was telling me about the smoothie industry. Now, I'm a baby boomer. As you mentioned, my wife and I, we've been married a long time, okay? We grew up on smoothies, not smoothies, but ice cream cones, milkshakes, Erik, hamburgers and Coca-Cola, okay? So a smoothie was something a little bit foreign to a boomer, right? That kind of thing. And it was 78 million of us out there that probably agree with me, right? So it was a new thing, right? So coming from a meeting one day, as a contractor, a colleague of mine asked me to stop at a Tropical Smoothie and we had lunch, there on the way back to the office. And so I had a smoothie and a wrap and made a decision the same day, and in the consultant field prior to the pandemic, we wore suits and clean shaven ties and the typical, office attire. And so when I put in my resignation, if you will, they were a little confused. They said, "What are you going to do?" So I'm going to sell smoothies. They said, "Really?" I had top secret clearances, a lot of things, right? A lot of tabs and things like that. And they were trying to process that. And, but I had made a decision. Now, mind you, I had no food service background. I had no thought of being involved in food at all. Right? But, I saw the opportunity there to take advantage of something. And so we went to the convention and the very first one, and Jackie and I, we hadn't been granted the our location yet, if you will. Ink hadn't even dried on our contract. But we went there to meet the team, and I was so impressed and excited. And, they were going across stage at that time. Annual unit volume was like 500,000 to 700,000 AUV, but the top awardees at that time were like 800, 900, and a couple of them hit the $1 million level. So I'm sitting there like a kid. And I told Jackie, I said, wow, someone made the $1 million level. We're going to be $1 million store. And she goes, we don't even have a store yet. My response was so. And right, which is a powerful word, by the way. I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, I was so excited. I came back and sent an email to our regional leader named Patrick, how excited we're. Thanks for inviting us. And, then I told him in the email we were going to be the type producer as well. I told him, this was in 2016. I said by 2018, we're going to be the number one store, and we're going to be the Rookie of the Year, have Rookie of the Year honors. Now, at that time, the conventions were every 2 years. But so the next convention, I sent the email in 2016, meaning that the next convention was going to be in 2018. We opened our store in 2017. Prior to opening, we had our weekly calls on development, right? And every week, I would tell whether we're talking to finance, whether we're talking to developers, who we're talking to that week, I would always send in the call with, make sure you tell the CEO that Maryland 18 is going to be number one. So by the 6th or 7th week, Erik, they said, yeah, Mr. Troutman, we know. Yeah, he knows already, But I told him every week. So here we go. We opened up in 2017 in February, which you would think is a cold time frame for year 4 smoothie concept, And I'm thinking like ice cream. Well, okay, let's see what we'll do. We opened in the coldness of February here in Maryland. And, Tropical Smoothie maintains a top 100 list, or top 100, now a top 150 runner-up list. And so the top 100 list were the cafes that achieve top unit volume each week on a weekly basis, revenue. So after our first week, we were ranked number 7, on the list of 100 after the first week. So the questions was, where's Capitol Heights, right? Where is this place, and who was that? And they're like, remember the guy who kept talking? Remember every week said he was going to be, that's down, number 18. The following week, we went from number 7 to number 2 nationally, as far as our ranking. And that first year, the remainder out of 44 weeks that we were open that year, we were number 1 for 42 of them, I believe, out of the 44. Yeah. 37 weeks, we were number 1, 37, 34 weeks out of that 37 weeks, we were number 1 nationally, and 2 of those weeks we didn't make because of snow, so then the year after that, 2017 to 2018 to 2019, 2020, we just kept hammering it, people kept coming, and so we created a dynamic when Tropical Smoothie, the highest earners were at that time doing 1 to 1.2. Our very first year was 2 million. So it was a paradigm shift for the company. And so one of the things about franchising is having a model that's duplicatable, and you have the back end corporate support, and you have to go to resources to say, okay, so this is something I've seen before. What do I do now? And get an answer. Well, in this case, the answer was, we don't know. We never had this problem before, right? So it was a paradigm shift, man. And, and it's been that way ever since. That 2 million was the lowest we've ever hit, quite frankly, So, but as the saying goes, a rising tide raises all ships, right? So all of a sudden, it reset the goalposts for the brand. People start to believe that, well, maybe we've been setting the bar too low. I heard a saying a while ago that goes that it's not that the tragedy, it's not that we aim too high and miss, but we aim too low and we hit, right? So, and I think that's what happened. And I think, setting, the one of the things that worked in my favor, I think, was I had no background. So there were no limits of possibility, right? There were no preconceived, I didn't have, and I told that to fellow franchisees that came to visit. Some had 14, 15 years of experience. I had zero. Then they were coming to me for advice. I said, if anything, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be able to do it. So everything was possible. There was no filters. There were no breaks, And so that's how we approached it, But with that said, I also set a goal to cast a wide net, I had two basic questions. Number one, do I truly believe we have a product or service that can help improve the quality of life for others? The answer is yes. Then the only other question I had, Erik, was how many people am I willing to give the opportunity to? And that's not determined necessarily totally by the location, right? But by the owner. I decide how many people I'm willing to serve, right? And so that's where we set the goalposts at 1 million people. Our first goal to have that banner, 1 million served. So I told that to the staff. In the hiring process, we talked about, hey, this is a tough job, and this, it's just hard work because we have a big job serving 1 million people. We got to go find them, right? And I found out that people are, inspired by a cause, which we want to be part of something bigger than ourselves, right? So as I told this thing, and I said, we have 1 million people, and we haven't found them all yet, but we can only do if we have the best. The question is, am I talking to the right person? And if you're competitive as I am, you go, absolutely. I'm your guy. I'm the young lady. I'm the one, right? So that became the call, the banner call for the team, which has a name, by the way. We're called the Dream Team. We call it the Dream Team. And so you have to qualify to be on the Dream Team because we have a mission, and in that mission is to serve people with healthier, foods and salads. They have to have better quality of life. Am I talking to the right person? So they bought into the vision, right? But then guess what? I turned around and started talking to the customers about the exact same vision. I told the customers, I said, we're the number one store. We got a lot of people to serve, and I need your help to find them. Then I had customers pull out their phones, Erik, and again, on Baby Boomer, right? I'm not totally connected on social media, but the kids are, right? So when I tell them about the vision, you know what they did? They pull out their phones and they go, I've got 20,000 followers. We got you, right? And so it created, what I call a ripple effect, if you will. It started to expand. People were telling people, and it kept coming. Hey, these guys want for 1 million. They would come in and go, did my uncle come yesterday? He was supposed to come yesterday. Let me call him now. And it became just a motivating surge, if you will, and the longer the line got, and that's what kept them coming. It was people. So what I tell everyone is that we're really in the people business.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are two really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisor and you're frustrated that you're not awarding as many franchises as you thought you would, this is the reason I created the Franchisor Mastermind. If you want access to the information, the techniques that the best franchise sales organizations are using to award franchises, and you want what mature brands have with their playbook of having happy, successful franchisees that grow the right way, then you might want to check out the Franchisor Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections. They want the playbook to achieve both short-term and long-term success. They want to increase enterprise value in their brand. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com. So you're talking a lot about people. You have this military background. I can just tell, you've got leadership written all over you. So how do you view leadership? how do you develop leaders within your own team there?
Okay, so, the saying goes, and thank you for that. As the saying goes, the speed of the group is determined by the speed of the leadership, right? So to take on that position, to be a pilot, then I automatically assume responsibility for everyone on the plane, right? And the same thing with franchising. As a business owner, I take full responsibility for my business. Even though it's a franchise, right? I'm an independent business owner, right? I'm a franchise owner. So, and with that, and I had the opportunity to speak actually with the IFA to the current acting Secretary of Labor, Julie Sue, about this just recently, was that, it's a partnership between franchising and franchisor, right? That we have. I'm a business owner, and we're in the people development business. That's where we're really in, right? Each person that comes through our cafes or through our businesses, either if they're aspiring to be owners themselves or be successful serving others, or they're heading somewhere else. And either way is okay. Our goal is to figure out why they're there, what do they want, and help them get to where they want to go. So as the saying goes, if you're not willing to lose them, you'll never win them. I don't try to keep employees. Better, we are committed to making sure we know what their goals are, and we ask them that. In the month of December, Erik, every year they have one-on-ones with me. We have our cafe. We're a little larger manning wise because of our demand. We've got 45 to 48 staff members in my cafe. And out of necessity, quite frankly. But I have a one-on-one meeting with them in the month of December, and again, we're talking like high schoolers, right? We're talking 17-year-olds, coming through their senior years, looking to go to college, trying to figure things out, want a little bit of independence from their parents while they're at home, right? Some spending money, whatever, right? But this is a very important time frame, right, for them, So we serve as a gap filler, if you will, to just to be in that space because they do the heavy lifting. They're looking for opportunity. They're excited about having a job and a little bit of independence, right? And they have needs though, right? So we have to really be in tune with who they are, what they're looking to achieve. Number one, let them know they can do it, right? Whatever it is. And if not, to challenge them, so where are you headed, and why, right? So I have a one-on-one with every member of the team before the new year, in the month of December. And they have to give me something before the new year. They have to give me something that they're shooting for. And I'll make notes in my phone, right? And I don't delegate it. I don't delegate it to the managers but at the same time, I'm developing the managers, if you will, in that leadership. So there's a pipeline so it can continue, right? So, so we have a systemic approach to it, if you will, of leaders developing leaders, right? Now, whether they're leaders in Tropical Smoothie Cafe, that's one thing, but to be leaders in life is another, right? So this is a long-term investment, right? We need it. They will be tomorrow's leaders. We only have a small opportunity to do something with them and help them.
So I'm sure you're like a lot of other businesses where you could be great if you could hire everybody right away that wanted to be a great leader. But how do you deal with staff that maybe shouldn't be on the team?
If they shouldn't be on the team, you have to qualify to be on the team, first of all, right? You have to qualify to be on the team, right? When I talk about the Olympics, I love all the different events of people challenging themselves and, but the rowing competitions in particular come to mind, right? And I talk about this with the team. I said, these are the best athletes for every country from around the world. And they train together for years for one opportunity, right? And as a team, when they're like all seen, I don't know, all the rowers are like 6 feet or higher, taller, right? Except the person with the megaphone, right? The coach, the rhythm person, and you see them, they go eat chow together, they eat food together in the cafeteria, and they're just these physical specimens and everything like that, and their shoulders just from training, right? And it's just amazing to see these athletes. And but one thing's for sure, they're not all the same strength levels. They have different responsibilities when they're rowing, right? Team of 9 or 10 or whatever, and some may be stronger than others. But the question becomes, what if the one that's the strongest refuses to be in sync with the others? Because they can row faster, they're more powerful, but they're not in sync. What are the odds of them winning if one's out of sync? As the saying goes, 0 to none, right? And so they have to be in sync. And the same thing in our cafes when it comes to our style of leadership. You have to be a good fit for us to have optimum performance, right, in serving our customers. We create that culture, if you will. If one person drops a container of strawberries and is rushing to take care of a customer, the next person should be sweeping it up for them. Not even if they didn't drop it, naturally, right? Trusting each other, which we refer to as trusting the grind. You got to trust the grind, because when you're taking care of the customer, and although you didn't drop it, you take care of it, and it's the same for us we had on Navy ships, right? There's a team effort when it goes to general quarters in order for everyone to survive. Right? So we have that same type of philosophy in our cafe, right? To make sure that everybody's pulling as a team. If you're not a team player, right, you don't live up to that, then for the sake of the team, you can't be on the team, right? Sometimes we hold on to people, and we lose the whole thing because of the result of it, right? Your top performers in particular, you keep someone who's a marginal performer. So the top performer, you still get it done, but the lifting's not equitable, right? And your top performers, they don't complain, they don't rust out, they give out, right? And that could be at the expense of those who are not pulling their share. So we have to do our due diligence, damage control, if you will, from a Navy perspective, right? To make sure that we're doing inspections and looking at the quality of the work and look how they interact with one another and are they committed to the team, Once the culture's committed, developed, right? It's hard to go rogue when everybody's working as a team.
Speaking of damage control, there had to have been some mistakes that have been made along the way, especially as, like you're a big thinker, you were thinking big before you even opened up. And so like, where have mistakes been made? What do you do about those mistakes? Do you have a certain framework of like just calling them learnings or mistakes, or just give us some insight into some of the things that have gone wrong and how you dealt with it?
We've had a lot of mistakes. And mind you, we continue to make them, right? The thing is that, and they are learning opportunities, to become better, right? But if there's an opportunity to, as my friend in the Army would say, if you're going to go through a minefield, follow somebody, right? But someone has to be first, right? So sometimes there are going to be missteps. In those cases, become those learning opportunities, and we've had them. We've from the inception, what Tropical Smoothie thought was the standard for a cafe as far as volume. The configuration layout was with one ice machine head, to support a typical operation. Well, we started out with, initially I wanted to have 2 ice heads. They said, well, the standard is 1. And I believed them. And I said, okay, yeah, I don't want to be overzealous. Okay. Because Patrick said, yeah, it'd probably be best to go with 1. That's the norm. And he came back and told me I was right. I should have had 2. Right? So we had to go and add a second ice head because we literally ran out of ice, which is, you can't be a smoothie concept without ice, right? I mean, it's like being a chicken concept without chicken, right? Don't look good, right? When you're an emerging brand. So the first thing we had to do, we had to be very, creative in how we're going to find ice, from in particular in new territory, there weren't a lot of other franchisees in our territory. So I had to go to other brands to find ice. I mean, Chick-fil-A and, other concepts like Sonic, and we have a very special, quality of ice, if you will, pellet ice is called, and we had to do barter exchange to figure out ways to make it work, and then once we got the second ice head in place, we found out that they still were not producing fast. We still came out of ice. So I had to go back to the manufacturers and suppliers and go, it's like, what is in the Navy? And I had to give them an analogy. I said, in the Navy, we have, we have coastal defense ships, like frigates, and then we have bigger ships like destroyers, and then we had battleships at one time. But at the end of the day, it all boiled down to the aircraft carrier. When the aircraft carrier shows up, then we know we're through talking. I say, I need to have your aircraft equivalent of an ice machine. So they said, well, we got this model here, and it does this and that, and so many pounds. I said, that's the one I need. And so we did that. So we had to reconfigure the whole demand and do that. And so that was one thing. Obviously, another was, the actual demand, our drive-through itself, caused a strain on how we were able to perform. The size of our facility was too small for what we do. And that caused challenges and backups. And this is before the pandemic, which only increased with the pandemic. Online ordering at that time was a very small fraction of our business, with third party, DoorDash and Uber Eats was less than 3%. And when the pandemic hit, that ballooned to 30 to 35% of business demand, so having the infrastructure for that. And we did not have that. So it caused even more backlogs and things of that nature but people kept coming. They just kept ordering in different fashions. So we had to be creative. And matter of fact, we're still working on that one now, as we're looking for most cafes, they look to from the 1,200 to 1,800 square foot. It's a normal size for a cafe on average. Where we're currently in a 1,600 square foot, which would have been considered normal. But we're relocating to a 4,200 square feet, the largest for Tropical Smoothie Cafe's history. But it's all, coming up with new solutions for something. And mind you, it's not for a sitting space, it's for production. It's for, having the infrastructure in place to serve in a higher capacity, and serve our customers. So those are just some examples.
So give me an idea of your infrastructure. So you're the leader, you're the owner. Who reports to you, or do you have several direct reports, and do they who reports to them, just from a management infrastructure?
Okay. So, we're a collective, with the Troutman Alliance, with myself, my wife, Jackie, my daughter, Jocelyn, and my son, Jordan. Even though he's remote in college, we still work as a collective. We have different lanes we run in, as the ownership level.
So is this a full family business?
It is. It's a full family business. Yes. We work as a team. I liken it to The Incredibles. When we come together, as a family, there's a lot of power there. And we bring different views and ideas to the table, and there's a different dynamic as a family. Looking at things and listening. To different perspectives. So that's one thing, because then to have different lanes from the family and the husband and the dad, and those lanes as well. And sometimes we have to turn it off, right? But the lanes we run in, like development and marketing, I'm on point for that area of the business. Jackie, she handles the finances. She's the CFO. I think actually most wives control all the CFOs. Most wives are CFOs in all families. Whether we admit it or not, right? But she makes sure that everyone gets paid, that things get in the right lanes, and that's a really big job, And Jocelyn, she graduated from Howard University, and we were looking to develop a management team, and gave her the choice. Actually, she wanted to join us at that time, and that's something for any family related business, is to see what the kids want, to see, because they may not be ready, that kind of thing. They may want to travel the world and do other things. And, but, she said, no, but she wanted to be with us, that kind of thing, which was cool. And so she came on board, and from the inception, it became our operations officer, for all the operations and everything like that, how everything works and flows and scheduling and, and the right people. And then again, Jordan, he does the human resources back end recruitment, the one thing about, Zoom and technology, he's still actively connected, from Stanford University. So he does a lot of interviews for us. So that's our base for us leadership on the ownership side. But then we have our management team. We have our store manager, two store managers, assistant manager. We have a team of shift leaders, if you will, under them, all in different levels of leadership, and of course the crew. So, and again, the whole idea though is to continue to build on that, if you will, as we expand. We're finally getting to a place where we can start to go multi-unit, whereby, we'll be adding more positions of district regional managers and things of that nature for multiple locations, if you will. But okay, yeah. So in that regard, we've got already under plan development 3 additional Tropical Smoothie Cafes in the pipeline, as well as 2 PJ's Coffees, quite frankly. Concept out of New Orleans that we're really excited about, to bring that to the Northeast with the New Orleans flair from the Northeastern region. And I have a great leadership team down at the Ballad brand, and put a tab in for them. So we're excited about that. The adding them also to our portfolio, and just continue to do what we do in that regard. And likewise too, the other thing we do as far as the leadership thing for those aspiring to be managers is to leave an opening for creating tomorrow's franchisee option. Should they want to be business owners as well. So we in our training, that's incorporating looking at things like an owner, and to if you're aspired to have one for you and your family, that the free enterprise system works. And so we don't hold that information back. We want them to understand from the very beginning that it's possible. And what we found is, and I even had a traditional owner, non-franchise, which why would you share the secrets of ownership with your managers? And I said, well, if you want the best, you're going to have to, they're already good, and they just may not know how yet. It's just a matter of time. The best are just, they may have some challenges, maybe in accessing capital or something like that, but they got that inner drive. You want to really best managers, they're probably just a step away from being owners themselves already, right? So you investing in them creates even a greater opportunity for you, than trying to hold things back, if you will, right? That's my philosophy. I said, won't they be your competition? I said, winners only compete with themselves. There's no such thing, right? If you lose them, you never won them. Right? That kind of thing, so that's my philosophy, right? But when we invest in them, and now is there a potential risk, right, that they may decide not to grow with you? Absolutely, but it's worth the risk, and it's just like love. I said, you have to give your whole heart, right? And be a leader. You can't really lead without putting your heart out there. And anytime you do that, you're probably going to get hurt sometimes. But that's the price of it.
One more little thing there. It's worth it. Well, Clement, this has been a fun interview, insightful, and just a treasure of information and experience that you have. So thanks for coming onto the podcast and sharing with my audience. And I will be meeting you one of these days because I have some Stretch Lab locations that I'm opening up in that Baltimore region. So if I'm out there in the next few years, I will look you up and we'll go to one of your cafes.
I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to picking your brain as well next time.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.